So today's workshop is about getting a better night's sleep, understanding and improving our sleep. So myself, Tracy Clark, I'm a CBT therapist at the Hub. My colleague.
Hi everyone, my name is Sapphire. I'm one of the assistant psychologists at the Cheshire and Merseyside Resilience Hub. So today we are going to go through a bit of a presentation about sleep. The main areas that we're going to be looking at today is having a think about why sleep is so important to us, the impact that poor sleep can actually have on us. We're going to talk about some factors that might be affecting your sleep. And then hopefully we're going to discuss some management techniques of sleep. And then lastly, we'll finish the video with some resources that you can go away and hopefully use to improve your sleep over time.
So we're going to start first really just setting the scene, just thinking about the impact of poor sleep. So we've got a few facts here just to get you thinking about, the broader, not just your own sleep, but the broader impact. So here's some figures about the cost of lost sleep to the UK, around 30 billion, 200,000 working days lost to insufficient sleep, and 1 in 3 people in the UK are affected in some ways by insomnia. Adults generally need between 7 and 9 hours sleep a night, and that means a good night's sleep. We spend about a third of our life sleeping. Naturally, we feel tired at 2 different times of the day, and that would be sort of 2 p.m. to afternoon and then 2 a.m.
I think if anyone's a shift worker that's watching this video is probably aware of the 2 a.m. It always seems to be at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. You tend to get a bit tired and a bit sleepy, and this kind of goes into that rhythm of pattern we see.
Yeah, definitely. Health, so there's health risks associated with poor sleep. People who sleep fewer than 6 hours sleep a night are 13% higher mortality risk, so that's a bit of a shock. Adults who sleep less than 7 hours are 30% more likely to be obese, so a lot of health risks there. And as Sapphire mentioned earlier, night shifts, there are issues around sleep and night shifts, and there are 25 to 30% higher risk of injury than people who work day shifts. And we have actually about 3.2 million night workers in the UK. So that's 1 in 9 workers who work night shifts. And that'll be a larger proportion of that in things like health and social care, where, there is a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week rota. So big numbers. And it's starting to think, set the scene there, starting to make you think about the impact of sleep. And here, finish this slide on. Better sleep is the biggest single contributor to living better. So it's something that is really important to try to improve.
It'd be interesting for anyone who's watching you to kind of think about those numbers, any of them surprise you, or kind of, in looking at the actual impact that sleep can have.
Yeah, it definitely surprised me, actually, some of those. So, makes you think. So next we start to think about, obviously the numbers are there, but why is sleep so important to us as individuals? And we consider the functions of sleep and just the things that we do know about. Sleep is important to help us process memories. It organises information, moves things around, the disruptions we've had during the day. So it's almost like a defragment there. Your brain organises things so your memories are where they should be the next day. It does things like restoring our bodies. So we do know that sleep is really important. When we're not well, we generally sleep more, and that's help us to get better. So it's restoring our immune system, improving our physical health. And it has a dream function. And I guess for me, that does still link into processing information and moving information around. So all really important functions, because those things set us up for the next day.
The next thing we want to do, Tracy's gone through a few of the ones there of why sleep can be so important, is to make you think and reflect on your own sleep at the moment and what impact that poor sleep might be having on you. So I want you to maybe pause for a moment, pause the video, or just kind of take some time to reflect on how your lack of sleep or poor sleep is impacting you at the moment. And then we're going to go through a few examples that we have on how poor sleep can impact on you on your everyday life. So the first thing you might see is you might have increased sickness, or you might notice within your team itself that you have more people going off sick, or your leave might be used up more often. Decreased communication is also a big one, as well as one thing we do get quite reportedly most people when we talk about sleep is poor mood, irritability. It has a massive impact on how maybe you're interacting, how you're communicating, and how you're perceiving things at that moment. So we do see a big increase in irritability and frustration maybe. Greater risk-taking behaviours. This was a surprise to me when I first read this one, but if you think about it, it makes sense in the fact that if you're struggling with your sleep, you might be not really caring as much about consequences. You just kind of want to get through things. You know, your processing might not be there, which is what we're going through a moment. And what we think is that kind of linked to this is the poor cognitive assimilation and memory. Our brains, maybe, as Tracy mentioned, one of the functions of sleep is to be able to process information. If our brain is not getting that time to process that information, we're not necessarily going to be able to make the best judgment calls or be able to remember things. So you might find that you're going into a room or you're trying to do a task and you get that moment where your brain just goes, what's going on? What am I doing? And that might happen more often than not when you're struggling with your sleep. Inability to make necessary adjustments. Again, this goes into a lot of the cognitive processing that we're dealing with here. Your brain might not have the power or the capacity to make judgments or to make decisions, is a big one as well. So you might find poor concentration, easily distracted. I think we've all got that when we're tired, we've had a long day, we'd sit there, we might kind of just get distracted, or we might just lose focus in the conversation we're having or the task that we're doing, until we come back to us and we realise maybe 10, 15, 20 minutes has gone by, or we haven't really done much. Performance deterioration. This can be something that you might notice, or it might actually be something that other people around you might notice. Sometimes they can see impacts before we do. But you might be getting reports from colleagues or from managers that, you know, you're not maybe performing as on par as you used to do, or that they've noticed some deterioration in your performance. So it might give you an indication that maybe sleep is impacting you more than you thought it did at the beginning there. And then the last one we've got on here, which probably is no surprise to most people, is that you might have an increased intake of things like caffeine, energy drinks, maybe also sugary foods, things like that that give us the energy that we're looking for that we may not have because of our poor sleep at that moment.
So I guess just thinking about that, most people would think about sleep and the impact of sleep as being tiredness, but hopefully you're starting to see there's a much broader impact, and poor sleep might be an explanation for lots of things. So we're going to think next about why sleep might be difficult for us, what kind of factors might influence sleep and why we might not be getting enough sleep. So kind of, I suppose, work-related causes, obviously shift patterns, and Sapphire mentioned that earlier, you know, people working shifts, and if you've ever worked shifts, you will know that that does cause lots of problems with sleep. Just getting routines, really. Having, you know, not those kind of typical routines, so the days of the week that you might work, you know, not being able to have a nice pattern or a routine to your days and your sleep. And stress, that won't be a surprise to people. Most people recognise they're more highly aroused when they're stressed and much more difficult to relax, more likely to worry. And again, all of these things disrupt the sleep pattern. And working relationships. And I think if you go back to the slide previously that Sapphire was mentioning about poor communication and irritability, really common that people feel like this. So it's inevitable that that will have an impact on work relationships and therefore, I guess, stress. So you can often see these feedback loops with these types of interactions. One difficulty can increase difficulties in another area and kind of make it difficult to sleep.
So we also notice impacts in other areas, such as our health and well-being. So we're going to go through a few examples that we've got here. Again, you might think of other ones, or you might experience it slightly differently than what we're going through. But we'll just come through some examples. So the first one that you might notice is short-term illnesses. A short-term illness or injury can affect the quality of our sleep and cause sleep deprivation. You might find that small adjustments to working arrangements, working from home, flexibility might help with that. But we do notice that short-term illness is one impact that can cause problems with sleep. Age is another area that you might see having an impact. It's a bit of a myth that older people need less sleep, but what we might actually see is that as you get older, you might not need the sleep in one single block. It might be that you're needing a nap in the afternoon, say, for example, or it needs kind of multiple blocks, but the same amount of time of sleep is needed. It just might look a little bit differently than when you were younger. You might also find that kind of going back to the shift patterns that we were talking about, or the differences in working weeks, which is a bit unique to health and social care and emergency services. If you're working night shifts and that, you might find as you're getting older, you need more of a recovery time. You might not be able to bounce back and do, a night shift, a day off, then followed by a day shift. You might need to look at maybe building a bit of a bigger buffer in between shifts, or look at what pattern it is there and see if there's any arrangements that can be made in terms of how that's working. One other thing is onset of condition or disabilities. So when you develop a condition or a disability, you might notice changes within your body. You might be experiencing difficult emotionals or physically, and that can have an impact on our sleep and our ability maybe to get comfortable or to be able to function, which might have an impact on our sleep. Pregnancy is another big one. Again, changes to the body, changes to the hormones, not being able to get comfortable or kind of being in the situation can have a massive impact on sleep quality. You might also find that you're getting tired a lot quicker as well. And if you're doing a physically demanding job, that's going to have an impact. So again, I suppose with all of these, and that it might vary if you're noticing it's having a big impact on maybe your working life or again on your sleep, it might be worth a conversation either with occupational health, with your manager, or with your GP if it's needed as well. Mental health. This is a really big one in terms of affecting sleep quality. We do find that there's a big causal link between sometimes having a mental health difficulty and sleep. Sleep can make mental health difficulties so much more difficult, or you might find that you're struggling with your mental health a lot more when you're not getting a good quality night's sleep. Part of that going with that cognitive ability to process and to handle things and difficulties that we're experiencing. But adversely, mental health problems itself can actually cause problems with sleep. So if you're dealing with anxiety, you might be dealing with ruminating thoughts at night that are kind of going round and round that are actually impacting you be able to shut off and to be able to go to sleep. So there's kind of a two-way street with those ones to really be aware of and to maybe get some support with. Menopause. So this is again a lot of changes in hormones, a lot of changes in your body and kind of what's going on. We might also see this if you're dealing with other maybe conditions or processes that are kind of causing those fluctuations or changes within you. So definitely worth a consideration in terms of how that's impacting your sleep, but also a bit of just a self-awareness and a bit of kindness to yourself that there's a lot of things that are affecting your sleep that you may not have been aware of, that you may not be able to control as well. And that's your medication. So we've popped this one in because it's a really good thing to consider. It links into some of the other elements that we've discussed previously, but medication should also be considered on its own. So if you take medication for any reason, you might find that some medications are stimulants, so really needs to be taken early in the morning as your day is going. But then other ones make you drowsy or tired, so the recommendation would be to take them later on in the day. So it's really worth, if you are taking a medication, maybe have a look at some of the side effects and if it can cause any of those changes within you, and have a discussion about if it's, say you're taking a stimulant at the end of the day, it might be worth having a conversation with your GP. That being said, some medication does have the opposite effect. So you might find that if it's traditionally a stimulant, but actually it does make you tired, that's absolutely okay. We're all individuals, but again, just have those conversations with your GP, just to make sure that you're taking the right things at the right time of day.
So additional factors, really, just on the same theme, really, just starting to broaden out how you think about sleep and the factors that might be affecting it. So personal and lifestyle factors, and some of these will seem quite obvious, but sometimes, we don't consider the impact of our environment, poor housing, living in damp conditions, or cramped conditions, or any environment where, we're not comfortable, we're not able to relax properly. So for health and sleep reasons, consider and think about your housing and how that might be affecting you. Personal life, it's very common. People do have busy lives, lots of things here to juggle and keep in place, and that can cause people to feel, I guess, more elevated in terms of, more stimulated, and that becomes harder then to wind down or switch off from. Finances, these are things, I guess, that might generate worry or concerns. Again, so I suppose that Sapphire referred to earlier, making it harder to relax and more likely to be worrying when we go to bed, and lots of kind of anxiety-provoking thoughts. Bereavement, we commonly, there are lots of things that disrupt sleep, but clearly when you're dealing with significant loss, that's going to have an impact on sleep. And it is about some things we can control, some things we can't. So it's important at times just to notice these things and try to be, as Sapphire said earlier, kinder to ourselves at times when we might need a bit of extra support to get to sleep or to relax. And new parents are really common. Anybody who's been a parent probably say that's the one thing they miss, a good night's sleep. So, it's noticing these things, and even if you can't change them, just being aware of them and trying to make some changes or modifications in your life to take some of the pressures away.
So we're going to return, Tracy mentioned earlier when we looked at some of the factors affecting back to stress, because this is one of the biggest factors we find affecting poor sleep quality. So we're going to go through a few areas that you might want to think about in yourself if you are experiencing stress at the moment, which I think we all do at some point or other. Control, so how much say you have in the way you do your work, or if you look at the kind of the wider implications of control, a feeling of lack of control in your own personal life maybe, or kind of feeling that everything's out of control, that you're not quite sure where you're going or what's happening, or in that can really cause a big sense of stress in our lives, which again can impact our sleep. We might find that we're so struggling to try and keep control and try and grasp everything that we're not able to do that, so that can have a massive impact. Demands, so workload, work patterns and work environment. So you might find that especially at certain times of the year, or times of night as well. I know, talking to previous staff members that work in A&E, for example, there's certain times of the night or the shift that become really, really busy. So you might find that if your workload is increasing, or you're at a certain time of the year where things are more stressful, it's reminding yourself that this isn't going to happen forever, but this might also be having an impact. So again, being kind to yourself at those type of times, maybe trying to put things into place beforehand, if you know that you're going to come to a particularly demanding time of the day or the year. Your role, so whether you understand your role within the organisation, and whether the organisation shows they do not have conflicting roles. So again, it goes off of that uncertainty, not really knowing where you fit maybe within an organisation, whether there's any conflict about what your actual role is, what you're supposed to be doing, who's supposed to be undertaking tasks. Again, these are all things that really build those stress responses in us. And as they change, I think we've all gone through at some point in our lives, be it personally or professionally, changes. And this can be things that are outside of control. So for example, you might be finding that you're changing locations, you might be finding that your role is changing, there might be shifts in dynamics within the team, who's responsible for different job aspects. Or it could be wider organizational changes, say you're changing trusts, or your service might be ending, or you might be changing or developing something else. Again, it's really being aware of the impact that these can have. But then also when we're talking about changes, how that's communicated it to you and how you communicate to other people. So really looking at that communication being key here. If people aren't knowing things, and again, it builds in that uncertainty and that feeling of lack of control if you don't know what's going on. So if that is something that maybe you're experiencing within your own role or your own department at the moment, it might be worth trying to generate that conversation, maybe communicate that to management, that this is causing stress for you at the moment, it's really impacting your role, and hopefully maybe it can generate a little bit more of that positive communication within the team. So we've got two factors here that we want to put in. So it's kind of looking at stress, but maybe ways to help alleviate some of that stress that we might all be experiencing. Relationships is one of the ones, positive work environments or positive roles or interactions that you might have in your personal life can really help to put a barrier up against that stress or help you deal with that stress. If you are dealing with conflicts within the workplace or arguments or disagreements, how are they being dealt with? Are you addressing them properly? Are you addressing them head on, or is it being left to fester? Maybe resentment builds and things like that. So really look at what relationships you have and how they've been approached, either personally or professionally. And the last one, support. What support are you getting at the moment? Or how are you supporting your colleagues? How are you supporting each other? Maybe that's a big one, and it can really help dealing with stress. A lot of times in organizations, you might feel that you're the only one that might be struggling. But chances are when you reach out and you talk and you support other people, you'll probably find it's a shared experience that you're all dealing with at the moment. So I'd really encourage that that spirit of being supportive of those around you, but then also looking for support. How are your managers supporting you right now? How's the organization supporting you? Are there things that you could access maybe that you're not at the moment? Work programs, training, or it could be well-being support, in the form of accessing, seeing if there's any staff support you could access, or having a conversation with occupational health and your manager. So it's kind of just getting to generate those ideas and think about what's going on for you right now, how you're experiencing stress, what impact that might be having, but then also maybe having a think about things that you might be able to change or look into to help you to deal with it a little bit better, which hopefully again will impact your sleep and maybe make that a little bit better in the long run.
Yeah, thanks, Sapphire. I think hopefully it's got you starting to think about what we can do about some of these things, so that whilst these highlighting issues that might affect sleep is important, it's also important to kind of move on and think about what we can do. And we thought we might start this process again by thinking about how a situation might affect us. So with CBT, so that's something that kind of is a psychological model that's a lot of people might be familiar with, but one of the staples of CBT is looking at maintenance processes, and the way it's kind of explained or illustrated is this, some people call a hot cross bun or the 4-button model. It's a way of looking at the factors that might contribute to a problem or a situation that is difficult. So we're going to use a situation here which is just somebody getting into bed and trying to get to sleep. And here we have kind of what thoughts we might have, or beliefs about sleep, really important. What we're thinking, because that will influence how we're feeling. It will influence how we behave, and it will also affect our body. So this process is one that we thought if we can explore in a little bit more detail and start to think about the individual components and ultimately what we can do to change some of that process.
So we've got an example here that we're going to go through of how this, as Tracy mentioned, this cycle is all interconnected. Each part of the hot cross bun impacts another in various different ways. So we're going to go through an example here of how this cycle can happen and actually perpetuate poor sleep and keep it going and sustain it going. So it's kind of looking at a negative cycle version first. If you want to kind of maybe go along with this at yourself as well, if you've got a pen and paper, either pause the video now to go and grab one. It might be worth going through this cycle yourself and thinking about your own responses maybe, or the way that you approach when you're struggling to sleep at night, and have a go at it yourself, and then maybe either come back to the video and think, or kind of go along with us as we're going through this process. So the first part that we're going to start with here is thoughts. So you might have been experiencing thoughts such as, I'm never going to get to sleep, or I'm going to be so tired in the morning. And this situation is where you're struggling to sleep. So you might be starting to have some of those negative thought patterns or beliefs, as Tracy mentions, to start with. What you might find then is that because you have these thoughts, you're never going to sleep, you might just end up lying in bed awake, not doing anything proactively, just lying there. Or as a big one that I know I'm guilty of at some point, and I'm pretty sure most of us probably are, you might pick up your phone and start scrolling. You might start watching something or reading something or looking on social media, or you might pick up your laptop to do some work or watch TV. You know, you might turn to technology to help you if you're struggling to sleep and to do something. You might then start noticing some of your emotions. So you might start feeling really anxious or really frustrated that you can't sleep, or annoyed with yourself, maybe irritated. Or you might start feeling really low and really sad that, you know, you just want to sleep and you're so tired, but you just can't. So you might be experiencing a mixture of all those different emotions, or it might be something completely different. And the last part on here, we've got bodily sensations. So again, this is only a couple of examples, but there's so many more that you might be experiencing. But we've put down here, you know, you might feel that you're physically exhausted. It goes beyond that tired, you're just absolutely mentally exhausted, physically exhausted. You might start experiencing like what we call butterflies, so that kind of fluttering in your stomach. Or other ones you might think is get really hot. You might start finding that your heart is racing because you're getting so anxious and worried about not being able to sleep that your body is maybe gearing up, and you might start finding your heart race is going, or your breathing might be faster, or you might start noticing some other physiological changes within yourself, which then actually in turn, because it's all these negative experiences, you're feeling really low, feeling anxious, frustrated, you're not going to sleep because your body is kind of more awake now. That's just going to feed into those beliefs that you had at the beginning that you're not going to be able to go to sleep. And again, we see the cycle then continues round, where you just continue to lay in bed, you carry on your phone because you're not tired anymore, you're wide awake now, so you might as well just keep on playing with your phone, and it kind of keeps that behaviour sustained, going and going round and round.
Yeah, so hopefully you can start to relate to that, and as Safia said earlier, trying to think about how this might relate to you. These examples are kind of general examples, but they're fairly common, but it's more helpful to specifically think about how this might relate to you. I'm going to now try and think about how we might interrupt or change that process and that interaction. So thinking about starting to think what element of this you could change, and you can look at the individual components. Very often behaviours are an easier one to change because it's an observable process. We generally have more kind of control over what we do than what we're thinking and how we're feeling. So starting with behaviours can be useful just to interrupt that cycle. And because things are interconnected, a change in one area will have an impact on other areas of this process.
So if we think about the thoughts of being the same as Tracy mentioned, so you're struggling to sleep, you've got the thought, I'm never going to sleep, I'm going to be so tired in the morning. It's kind of all very negative. Those beliefs are quite ingrained. But instead of the previous behaviour that we had in the last slide, we're going to change things up a little bit and look at it more of a positive way. So instead of just lying there or using, doom scrolling on your phone or watching TV, you might find that you do something different. You might do some relaxation. Some mindfulness and meditation. You might be trying to do one of those behaviors or activities that actually help to calm your system down or to kind of help you relax. You might find changing environments good. So rather than lying in bed and not being able to do anything, I think there's a rule of, after, I think it's 10-20 minutes, Tracy?
I think it's in the middle. I think it's 15. So I think it's that. But yes, something, put a time limit on that. As Safia says, kind of it's okay to lie there relaxing, but once it gets to sort of, 15 minutes, maybe get up and do something different. Yeah.
Yeah, so you might go and read a book in the living room if you've got ability. Obviously, I know that maybe some people watching this are in a studio apartment, you may not have the luxury of that, but maybe even just getting out of bed, if you've got a chair, going and sit there, or kind of that, just the act of actually moving where you are can make a big difference. And maybe go and have a cup of tea, or go and read a book or something like that, so you're not in the same environment. And the last one we've got there is to listen to music, maybe put a sleep cast on, something like that, to kind of help you relax in a more of a gentle way. What we might find then is that your emotional responses then change, because of what you're doing is a more calmer, you're doing relaxation, you might be reading, you might be doing something that's quite gentle, that's not, doom scrolling or kind of going to make you be awake. You might then start just notice that you start feeling calmer. You might have some of those more negative ones again. You might still feeling a little bit frustrated or irritable in that, but overall, hopefully that'll start having an impact on your emotions and making them slightly calmer, making them a bit more manageable in terms of the previous cycle response. That in turn, hopefully you might start then noticing, because you're feeling calmer, your system's calming down, you'll then hopefully notice a change in your bodily sensations. So you might get less tense, your heart rate goes down, and then instead of that exhaustion that we had in the last one, you might just start feeling actually tired, that you could drop off to sleep, or your system's calming down enough that your brain is not wide awake anymore, so you might be able to drop off to sleep. And that hopefully brings the cycle back around to the beginning. So those initial thoughts and beliefs that we had about not being able to sleep, that you're going to be so tired, might just start to shift a little bit. So instead I might not get a lot of sleep, but I can rest and relax. Or I might be struggling now, but I will eventually get to sleep. So it's like that fundamental shift in that belief around your sleep, instead of being never going to sleep. So kind of going around this cycle and those actions too. You might not be asleep already, but you're feeling a bit more positive, and actually that is something that you're going to be able to achieve. And then the more you go around this cycle and kind of implement those behaviors and changes, hopefully that will then lead you to dropping off to sleep.
So we're now going to kind of move on to just thinking about that, the same or a similar theme really, how we manage sleep, what kind of factors might influence that, and what we can control.
We live in a fast-paced world full of stimulation. We're overwired, overworked and overconnected, but it's really important that we make the time to wind down properly before bed. Try to avoid lots of bright light in the hour before bed. Light keeps you stimulated and awake. Invest in dimmer lights or low wattage bulbs. Routines that are linked to sleep signal the body and brain that it's time to wind down before bed. Think a warm bath, soothing music, a milky drink, or reading a book. It's also really important to try and do the same things every night too, such as cleaning your teeth and going to the loo before getting into bed. Getting up and going to bed at the same time every day also programs your body to sleep better, so keep regular hours where possible. It's important to be comfortable in bed. If you get cold feet, use a hot water bottle to warm them up. Equally, if you get hot in bed, use an electric fan to bring the temperature down. Tempting as it is to unwind before bed with a glass of your favourite tipple, you won't be doing yourself any sleep favours. While alcohol may help you fall asleep initially, it does disrupt the later stages of sleep. Plus, you'll wake up feeling dehydrated. Avoid technology in the hour before bedtime, and that includes computers, tablets, smartphones and televisions. Not only do they stimulate you, but the blue light from these devices disrupts your internal body clock, making it harder for you to fall asleep. Napping is not generally encouraged, as it does have an effect on nighttime sleep. However, if you haven't slept well, a short nap of no more than 20 minutes gives you as much energy as 2 cups of strong coffee, but the effects are much longer lasting.
So as you probably saw in the video, there was a few different ones. We've just kind of put a snapshot up on the screen, haven't we, Trace? About
just
some of the main areas.
Key points, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, so again, no napping. I know we mentioned before, sometimes age-wise, that could have an impact that you might not be able to have it all in one block at night, so you might need things. So again, it's being individual and kind of looking at your own personal circumstance in that one, but ideally napping if you can help it, to really make sure that you're getting a good night's sleep at night. Bed is for sleeps. Again, we mentioned before, it might be a bit tricky if you've got a studio apartment where, bed may be the only place to sleep, but maybe it's kind of looking at what you can do, maybe sitting in a different part of the bed than where you normally sleep, or kind of if there's any other dynamic, can you put a chair in your apartment if that's possible? Is there space? All those bits and pieces, all those changes that you might be able to implement to hop into that there. Do you want to explain maybe the hypervigilant part, Tracy?
Yeah, so that's where I guess, and that will come from noticing bodily sensations that are not conducive to sleep, being tense, checking, am I going to sleep? So it's like maybe excessive worry, anxiety provoking thoughts that again increase arousal and make it harder to relax. And we're thinking here, so just preparing for bed. So before you go to bed, it's all about the intention to relax really, and create an environment where sleep is more likely, or relaxation is more likely. Considering how important it is, it's not something you can just leave to chance. If you're struggling, you have to try and promote these things that will improve the chances of you getting to sleep. So these are just some ideas really. Just try an hour before you go to bed on average. Maybe mindfulness is something that works for some people, that way of just allowing your mind to wander and relax. So maybe some more physical things like focusing on breathing. Lots of people find that relaxing. A nice warm bath, not something I like, but lots of people do like it.
I'm a bath person, Tracy.
Yeah, with some essential oils. Yeah, those kind of things. I think lots of people, it's again, I think Sapphire mentioned it earlier, we are all different and individual. You have to find the things that work for you, and that might require a bit of experimentation. Processing thoughts, so maybe if you know something is bothering you, having to think about that the hour before you go to bed and trying to come up with some sort of resolution that you can implement either now or tomorrow, which just makes it easier to detach from that worry if it comes back when you go to bed. Herbal teas, that's my thing. I like a nice herbal tea before bed. Reading, yeah, that's again something that helps people to relax and changes where their mind is, so takes it away from stress and anxiety.
Probably to put a just a disclaimer on the herbal tea one there.
Oh yes, yeah.
The thing is that some of them are caffeinated.
Yeah, that's probably why I like them. Yeah,
keeps you awake.
Yeah.
So that might also be something to consider if maybe if you do tend to have the habit already, you go to herbal tea, and you find actually it's not really helping me. It's not really moving. Maybe have a look at what herbal tea you're having. Does it have caffeine? And maybe have a see about looking at a different brand or different one that maybe doesn't have as much caffeine, or maybe it's decaffeinated version instead.
Yeah, good point.
Good idea.
Yeah. And yeah, just a general theme. Just general theme, limiting caffeine. So Sapphire did make that point that some herbal teas do contain caffeine, and screens. This is a big one for me. I do watch TV in bed, which I know is not helpful, but those screens do stimulate your brain, make it harder to sleep. And obviously, lots of these things, common sense, no heavy foods before you go to bed. So your body obviously isn't processing food, and that will keep you awake. So.
Might be, I know some people that do want a little snack, or kind of if you wake up in the night, you might kind of a bit peckish in that. Maybe it's looking at kind of what you are. So if you do know that that's something that helps you, or that you kind of gear towards, maybe having a biscuit or something lighter or smaller than you would normally go to. So kind of maybe stick away from those late night, snacks or binges or anything like that. Kind of maybe having something prepared. That might be a good way of kind of maybe putting something out the night before, or having something easily accessible that is a bit lighter, a bit thing like a couple of biscuits or something like that is not going to be as heavy on your system.
Your bedroom is your space, your personal sanctuary, a place to go to escape the hustle and bustle of everyday life. So creating this perfect sleep space is crucial. The first thing to look at is keeping your bedroom dark. Light suppresses the sleepy hormone melatonin, which makes it harder for us to drop off to sleep at night. it's important to invest in lamps or dimmer switches if you want to read in bed. Or if street light or morning light wakes you, try investing in dense curtains, blackout blinds, or even an eye mask. Temperature is also important. Feeling too hot or too cold in bed can lead to restless sleep and wakefulness. Keep your bedroom slightly cool at around 16 to 18 degrees Celsius. Make sure your bedroom is free from distractions. It is not a dumping ground for the rest of the house, nor is it an extension of your living room or study. Make sure it is a place that's calm and relaxing. Remember, your bedroom should only be used for sleeping and sex. Also, turn off your gadgets before bed, and that includes your TV. Blue light inhibits the nighttime secretion of melatonin, making it harder for you to fall asleep. Avoid screen time at least an hour before bed. Don't be tempted to fire up the iPad or check on your emails. Instead, find alternative ways of relaxing. Your bedroom is your space, so make sure you fill it with the things that you love, whether that's family photographs, artwork, plants, or even flowers. It will help make your bedroom feel more inviting and welcoming. Avoid rich, deep colours, such as purple, gold, or reds in the bedroom, which stimulate energy and result in poor sleep. Pastels, such as blue, green, and yellow, are more calming shades and promote a more relaxing environment. Some smells can affect your mood, making you feel more relaxed and calm. Essential oils such as lavender or geranium are often used as relaxants, but remember, don't use in pregnancy or in children's rooms.
So again, like similar to the previous video, we've just picked out some key points here, which is all about creating a nice, relaxing environment. And again, as Safi points out quite regularly, you've got to look at your own environment and what's possible for you. But again, with the intention to create a relaxing environment in the ways that you can, thinking about being kind of what lights are in the room, and if you can subdue those lights, making sure you keep warm in various ways, comfortable in bed, support pillow, calming music, which has been mentioned before. Nice, comfortable bed, making sure that your bed is comfortable enough to sleep in, and maybe some relaxation or breathing exercises that are all on the same theme, and it's picking things that are going to work best for you and the environment you are in.
Definitely. I think going back to the comfy bed one just for a second, Tracy, is I know some people that mattress is a key one in terms of there, but it might very well be that you know that your mattress needs replacing, but you can't afford it right now, or it's just not possible for whatever circumstances you're in. So maybe it's then looking at kind of maybe adjustments. Could you maybe get a mattress topper? Could you maybe look at the bedding that you've got that might be a little bit more affordable to be able to change, to make slight adaptations to your bed that may not be as big a financial strain or kind of there. So it's kind of looking at those smaller impacts that you could do instead. So we're going to have a look now, because some of you watching this recording might be shift workers. So we thought it would be handy to maybe go through this information that we've got here on the screen that kind of goes through the process of looking at the day before a night shift, during your night shifts, and then kind of resetting afterwards. So we're going to look at them in individual components now to go through. So hopefully it'll be useful for the ones of you that are night shift workers. So the first thing we're going to look at is the day of a first night shift. And there's 3 different areas here. So the goal is to ultimately minimize your sleep debt. So kind of making sure that you're going into your first night shift as rested as possible. So, the first one they suggest here is to sleep until you wake naturally. Don't set an alarm, kind of just let your body get as much sleep as it possibly needs to. Avoid a morning coffee. Might be very, very tricky, or alternatively, avoid that morning tea. Might be some tricky, but again, it will really impact you and help you later on. And then the last one we've got here is to take a 90-minute nap. Again, the last one here is to take a 90-minute nap to complete one sleep cycle, usually roughly between 2 and 6 p.m. That day. And then before trying to sleep again, avoid bright lights, screens, alcohol, all those bits and pieces that we mentioned in the previous slides about kind of trying to foster a good sleep environment. To sleep in a quiet, darkened room. And again, that might not be possible. So it could be that you invest in a really good eye mask if you're not able to get some really good blackout curtains. Maybe have an eye mask, that might be a good compromise. And accept that any sleep is better than none, even fragmented or shortened sleep episodes, and maximize sleep time. So kind of give yourself as much opportunity as possible to get that sleep that you need during that time.
Yeah, and then this last one here is just about resetting after your night shift. And that's the goal of this, really, is to re-establish a normal sleep rhythm. So kind of trying to get that, kind of relatively short 90 to 180 minute nap immediately after your shift. So get to bed quickly and then go outside after waking, get some of that fresh air, bit of activity, and then of course aim to get to bed as close to your normal time. So trying to re-establish normal routines as quickly as possible and avoid that daytime napping in the subsequent days, because you're going to feel tired maybe. So try to just keep to a normal routine as much as possible. Yeah, so here we've got this, an exercise that hopefully you can take away and work on. And just to follow up from everything that's been said, trying to condense this now into something that you can do. So this is the daytime, things you can do in a daytime. So setting some little goals, things that you can do based on the principles of improving sleep. Maybe fitness things, how you can keep active in the day. Opportunities to maximise exposure to daylight. So trying to get your body in the right frame of mind during the day. Healthy eating and drinking is good for lots of things, but especially sleep. Some exercise that you can do. So having a little plan, really. And it starts off with what time you're going to wake up and how you're going to spend the day. Because all of these components, as we've seen from all of these slides up to now, all contribute. They might contribute a smaller or a larger amount, but as much as you can do to plan, to work towards improving sleep, and writing down that plan can be really helpful.
Definitely. I think kind of in addition to this is the sleep window, but then looking at nighttime. So as we've kind of looked in the videos and when we've talked about managing sleep, we've seen the importance of having a daytime routine, but then also it's equally important to have a proper nighttime routine. So again, the idea of this window is to kind of give you some prompts and some maybe of setting some goals and looking at ahead of time what things you can be doing or what changes you might be able to implement. So looking at the 60 to 90 minute window to wind down. What activity are you doing just before you go to bed? What's you doing? Are you listening to music? Are you reading? Are you relaxing? Are you having a hot drink? Maybe a shower or a bath, depending on what your preference is there. What opportunities are you doing to minimize exposure to bright light and screens? So again, might be really, really tricky, but it might very well be worth saying, an hour before bed, phone goes off, television goes off. I'm not going to look at screens or those bright lights that actually kind of work to stimulate our brain instead of actually calming them down. I know that's something I find particularly difficult and I'm working on, but again, it's all a work in progress. So it's trying to look at what things you can possibly do. Things to do if you can't sleep. So kind of it goes back to that behavior cycle that we talked about before. Do you just lay there? Do you just doom scroll? What do you do? That can maybe actually get you sleep worse, but in this one, we're going to look at what can we do to help us when we're struggling to sleep. So, relaxation, music, what your sleep routine, maybe start your routine again. And hopefully that will prompt you a second time to be able to get back there. Again, wherever possible, remember that the bed is only for sleeping. It's ideally not for other activities during the day, watching TV or kind of reading or eating, things like that. And again, what other skills could you be looking at that might be impacting you? Grounding, relaxation, worry management. Is there something on your mind at that time? Maybe journaling or diary writing might be a good aspect for that. If you notice that those sort of things crop up at nighttime, that worry or the stress that might be experiencing. So what can you do to help manage that or mitigate the impact that might be having on you?
And I think just to add to that, remember that these are skills, so they need practice, and it's probably no good trying to do that when you're in a highly aroused, agitated state. Ideally, you want to practice these things when you're not there, so that when you do need the skill, you've already got a skill level that's appropriate. So you know how to relax, you know how to manage worry, you've practiced grounding techniques. So don't try to implement them like in that moment when you need them, practice them, at different times so that you've got that there ready. I guess for me, the take-home message is have a plan. Don't just leave things to chance and continue with unhelpful habits, and make a decision to improve some areas that you can.
Definitely, and hopefully having a plan like this, or using this window, or if you have a better way, or kind of way that helps you, can really help you get there. Because as Tracy mentioned, not a great time to start like, let's do some grounding ones when you've never done it before, when you're kind of maybe really struggling, you're really stressed, or in that, try them beforehand is a really good point to kind of make there.
Yeah, here we've just got some suggestions for some of the ideas about how to calm that threat system, because that arousal system is a thing that often makes it hard to sleep. So there's grounding techniques, mindfulness and breathing exercises, relaxation and meditation. These are all things that I guess will do the same thing, but individually you might prefer some to others. So it's about thinking about how we calm down and trying these different things. And actually we've got some resources, haven't we, that are going to be attached to this workshop.
Yeah, definitely. So at the end of the workshop, which we'll get to in a little bit, we've got hopefully some resources that will really help you there. And I think it's really important, as Tracy mentioned there, everyone's an individual. So you might find that one technique works for you, but not for someone else. Or, someone might have signposted you or kind of said, hey, try this grounding technique. It really helped for me. But when you try it, it doesn't. So I think the message here is just to keep persevering, keep trying different things, and hopefully eventually you'll find one that works for you, because it's really important of finding that way to calm the threat system. So when that happens, we get really hyper aroused. So our system kind of goes into what we might have heard of before, the fight or flight response. We're gearing up to be able to respond to a threat, and at that time, the lack of sleep and the kind of the situation and the impact, those doubts and worries, that becomes a threat at the moment. So it kind of gets our system working up and to respond to it, which is really not helpful when the threat is not being able to sleep and we're worried about that. And our system is kind of actually working the opposite. And actually the response it has by gearing up our adrenaline, our heart's racing, we might be getting really tense. That actually kind of perpetuates the not being able to sleep. So it gets a little bit mixed message at that time. So these techniques can be really helpful in just trying to soothe that, trying to hit that pause button to calm those down. And so, keep trying different ones until you find one that works for you. But I think you made a really good point in the last one, Tracy, about practicing these in times where you are calm. So maybe doing them during the daytime rather than leaving them to last thing at night. So one of the ones that we want to introduce here, just to kind of give you a bit of a flavour and an introduction to some of the techniques, is a breathing technique. So we're just going to take a moment to go through one of these techniques that you're welcome to maybe go along with us and experience it with us, or just to listen along if you feel more comfortable about one. So the technique that we're going to look at today is called controlled breathing. Okay. So when you're ready, I want you to get yourself comfortable. You can sit or stand, wherever is most comfortable for you. You can have your eyes closed or open. Just haze your gaze and not really focus on anything if you are opening them up. Now I want you to concentrate on your breathing for a few moments. Breathing slowly and calmly through your nose and out through your mouth. Now place one hand on your chest and one on your stomach. I want you to imagine that you're filling a bottle from the bottom up. So your hand on your stomach moves first, and your hand on your chest. You are filling and emptying your lungs with each breath. It may help to count. In 2, 3, and out 2, 3. In 2, 3, and out 2, 3. Now once you have mastered the controlled breathing, try saying to yourself, calm as you breathe in, and relax as you breathe out. Calm. Relax. Now, this technique can be used at any time and anywhere to switch off the body's stress response. I want you to take a moment just to come back to the room. You might want to stretch or open your eyes and bring with you this feeling of calm and relaxation. So that was just a flavour and a bit of a tester. You know, hopefully the ones of you that were going along with that technique, it's just a short one there, might have felt just some benefit or some calmness kind of maybe entering into your system a little bit there. I don't know if you were doing that along, Tracy?
I was just going to say I was doing that, and actually I did feel I could definitely feel quite calm. I think breathing is something that works for me, and breathing actually does have good evidence, so it's a good one to practice. So yeah, thank you. Nice and easy.
And that's just one simple technique, and I think the benefit of that one is that you can use it anywhere. I've known people that, you know, they're on a ward, say, for example, and they can't really take a lot of time, so they just use it for a couple of moments where they just focus on the breathing, or if they weren't walking. And that one can also be used, it can be used for just like we've done there, a couple of moments, you know, a couple of minutes, or it can be extended, so you might want to sit with it longer. It could be, you know, 5, 10, 20 minutes even if you need it. You can just sit with yourself and just concentrate on your breathing as long as
as you say, I think that's it. Very versatile, and it's with you. You know, you're not relying on external things. You've got that skill with you. So that I like it for that reason as well. So yeah. So we just finish up now really by just summarising what we've been the content of the workshop. So we've explored some of the factors that can impact on our sleep, and hopefully we've given you some suggestions on how to improve your own sleep. So I guess the next step for you is to try out some of the techniques and maybe research your own, and hopefully you will succeed in making some improvements to your sleep pattern.
But again, as we mentioned multiple times, I think remember that everyone is different. What works for you might not work for someone else, and vice versa. So really just keep persevering and keep trying different ones. So the last part of this presentation is some resources. So we've highlighted some resources for sleep here, some different websites that you might want to explore in your own time and have a look at. That are kind of particularly in different areas. So we've got one on narcolepsy, restless leg syndrome, sleep apnea, snoring and sleep, kind of all those some different areas that might be impacting you that we haven't really covered today. And then lastly, we've got some more general resources that we're going to include in this presentation as well. Some links to some meditation videos, different resources such as grounding techniques. Again, the idea is to just give you a bit of a flavour into some of the different ones that you might want to look into, and hopefully find one that works for you.
Yeah, so thank you for listening to the presentation, and I hope you've got something from it and you know a bit more about sleep and the importance of it.
Yeah, thank you both for listening.
Yeah, thank you.